Don't talk bad about the robots because we don't want video evidence of our betrayal. So
Yeah,
it's not.
That day is
I want to be
coming.
spared
to get you.
Yeah.
I want to be
Can't wait till our
spared.
robot
Yeah.
overlords take over. I can't wait for it.
Embrace it.
Finally, it's been a minute, as the kids say. Here's DorkCast episode 60, The DOTY, now with robots. In this episode, the three least popular dorks sit down with the reigning Dork of the Year, Leung of Brick and Mortar Ventures, and Derrick Morse of Rugged Robotics. If you've been jonesing for a dose of nerd, these two do not disappoint. We hope you enjoy, and we promise we're trying to drop more sodes on the reg. As the kids say, I think.
And we're back. And we're back with most of us here this time. And hopefully we'll be able to start putting out the show more regularly again now that things are winding down from the conference season and everybody's getting back to normal. Today we are joined by Leung and by Derrick Morse. So, Travis, I haven't seen you in a while. Why don't we start off by having you introduce yourself, and if you have anything this evening to drink, introduce that.
Yeah. It's been way too long. I'm finally getting some spring here in Northern Illinois, so looking forward to that. Tonight I am drinking a Generations beer from Freeport, Illinois. It's a hella good. It's a hella lager, and it is definitely hella good. I definitely recommend it. It's not very hoppy, more malty, so Trent would love it. Trent, what do you got?
All right. Well, we're going bourbon today, guys. So I got a 12-year Knob Creek here.
That's a good one.
It's actually one of my favorites. I think at the price point, I think it's one of the best for that. It's like a $60, $70 price range. So, but it's really, really good. So, John, aka Jeff Sample.
I got one probably that no one's tried. I have Horse Soldier. It's actually from Ohio, and I got it for my birthday. Somebody gave me an early birthday gift, and it's got to be one of the better bourbons that I've had. Like it's really soft. It's 87 proof, but it's not terribly hot. It's got a good flavor, and it's from Ohio. I just started seeing it on the shelves. So if you see it on the shelves, pick it up. It's still small enough that they're numbering. So it's like a barrel pick. So they're still numbering the bottles. But really good bourbon. Really
I've
nice
heard good things
on the back end.
Yeah.
So Derrick, could you, for everyone that doesn't know you, could you introduce yourself and introduce, Dynamic Robotics and what Dynamic Robotics is doing for the industry right now?
Absolutely. Super excited to be here today. So my name's Derrick. I'm the founder and CEO of Rugged Robotics. We're a construction technology company initially focusing on field layout. So we've built a layout Roomba, drives around on concrete floors and marks a fully coordinated design directly onto the concrete. So MEP hangers, ducts passing through walls, intersections, between the trades, the details of wall type and fire ratings and all that information, bringing that coordinated model into the field to help the trades build things more effectively, more efficiently.
And we kind of grabbed you before you actually had a chance to go home from work today. So I'd imagine you don't have a drink.
I don't have a drink. I'm having an extra coffee, so I'll be especially chatty this afternoon. But I do enjoy whiskeys. My pick lately is a Shibui single grain 10-year that my wife actually bought me for my birthday. I think it was a Trent. Someone mentioned. Oh no, it was you that mentioned that you were drinking a gift. I'm working my way through a bottle, and I've found the Japanese whiskeys really nice lately.
Hell yeah!
It's a little pricey. I think it's in the $150 range. I Googled it. So she splurged and got me a pretty nice gift this year. So I appreciate that. But
nice.
Right on. Friend of the show is Kevin Suhu, and he started me on the Japanese whiskeys. And for a while there, I mean, I still have behind me like a Hibiki that he gave me, and Hakushu, and a little bit like a Harmony. They are awesome. They're awesome. They're like very subtle and nice. So Alice,
they are very good, and I don't care for the single malts as much, but the Japanese ones are subtle, like you said. So sorry.
So it's marketed as a single grain, and I think they're trying to like make it sound like a single malt to get attention. I think the base is rice. It's aged in white oak, European oak, and it's really smooth, subtle. It's nice. I like it.
Nice. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jeff. Alice, you're up. Tell us a little bit about you. And you got a guest there that is a little bit famous. Guest.
Oh my God. This is Newton. He was lost. So the last time I was on the show was just under 2 years ago. And we were recording it when I was down in Gilroy looking for my lost cat. So this is Newton. He's been found since then. I guess like we never formally, close the loop on that story. So I'm glad that we're able to do that now about a year and a half later. Don't worry, Newton's home. He's been found.
I can finally sleep. Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
He was gone for 5 weeks. I know some people didn't want to ask about the outcome.
That was me.
Yeah, it's one of those things you never ask about.
Right.
You also never ask if a woman is pregnant, right? Like, just don't do that. It's not a smart.
Well, I am.
Hang on, let me write that down.
But I am at home drinking a Diet Coke. Not very fun, but
Alice and I are lame. Sorry, guys.
Wow.
Well, San Francisco.
It's a little early, on the West Coast. So
And are you out on the West Coast, Derrick?
No, we're in Houston. I moved to Texas about 5 years ago. And to be honest, when I first landed here, I felt like an outsider, but I'm really leaning in. I'm embracing it. I'm enjoying it. I've got myself a nice big pickup truck. I wear this every day. It's
just
really
full on Texan at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
When in Texas, do Texas.
Yeah. Well, it's working out really well. It's honestly, for a place to start a business, it's really business friendly. And if you think about the cost of living, I raised money on the East Coast, West Coast, and then we spend it here, and it goes further. And for a venture-backed company, it's a meaningful extension, I'd say.
I would also say you have some great construction allies down there in Texas. You have some wonderful companies out there. We were just down there at DSI, and you go to that truck thing. I walked out of their fab shop and I look around, and everybody's truck is like the best truck I could ever imagine having. And they're like
$100,000 trucks everywhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The truck scene is huge, and the construction scene obviously anchored by the energy industry. That's why I moved to Houston. I was actually overseas. I was living and working in South Korea for a while. And when my wife and I wanted to come back to the US, we were trying to figure out where we were going to land. And I wanted to get back into the construction industry. It's where I got my start, and it's a sector that I love and want to be a part of. And with so much heavy construction and the energy industry here, this is, in my opinion, a North American mecca for all things engineering and construction related. And it's also the fourth largest city in the country and growing at this tremendous rate. A lot of other large cities are shrinking, but Houston's continuing to grow by, I think, somewhere around 100,000 people a year. So there's just a lot of construction work here. It's a great place to be.
Fantastic.
So I thought maybe we kick it off with Alice. Do you want to announce to everybody your new title? Not that she's moved positions, people. She just has a new extended title. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I was I was very surprised. So at the MEP Innovation sorry. You should cut that out. At the Construction Progress Coalition AECX Summit, I was given the Dork of the Year award. I was very surprised. I was not expecting it, and I think too bad the photographer, videographer didn't catch my reaction, because I think Nathan announced it and my mouth just dropped and I was like, what is going on? But I am very thankful for it, and it is definitely a big honor, because I've always seen myself as a technology geek of some sorts, and I know in certain contexts people say, I guess maybe growing up people had a negative connotation for being a dork, but I've always embraced being geeky, dorky, nerdy, whatever it is, loving technology, loving robotics, loving hardware, cool things. And yeah, I think it definitely fits, and it's an honor.
I think there's like, I don't know when it happens, but for me, I always felt uncomfortable being nerdy and dorky when I was in high school, etc. But now I fully embrace it. And I'm comfortable with who I am.
Right. And I do think that there was there's a in the social world, like the media and everything like that for a while especially through the 90s and those early 2000 films, they were picking on the geeks, but eventually the geeks started getting paid. And I think that helped make it cool a lot,
Yeah. That does make it cool. I mean, it's like, oh wait, I can make money doing things that are like cool and fun. Like, oh,
exactly.
All right.
I saw someone wearing a t-shirt that said, "Be nice to nerds. Someday you'll work for one."
That's probably pretty true.
Shirt. Yeah.
The same applies to robots, right?
Most likely.
You should.
Was that a good segue?
That's a good segue. So, I got to admit, one of the things that I really loved is watching my kids, who I have an exceptionally nerdy kid, and watching the fact that they have all this. It's not a bad thing. It's perfectly acceptable now. And there's all this extra opportunity. Like I go to her school and look around, and there's like every nerd toy I could have ever wanted as a child is now there and available for them. And there's a line to get at things like 3D printers, which is crazy.
That's cool.
That's not something that was happening in culture. But
have you guys ever been to a first robotics competition, FRC?
Oh, yeah.
So the World Championships are hosted here in Houston pretty regularly, and I don't know, 4 years ago I went for the first time, and I had goosebumps. It was like Friday Night Lights football level of excitement, intensity, teamwork, collaboration, but it was for nerds, and it was something that I never had access to. I didn't even know existed. I don't think it existed when I was in high school. But to be there and to walk through the pits and to see a team of high school students like literally tearing a robot down to its chassis and like frantically putting it back together, and someone's looking at their watch. We've got 4 minutes. Go. It was really amazing, and it was such an experience. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The tools and the technology and the resources that nerdy kids have at their disposal now, it's cool to be nerdy almost. And you can find other people that are nerdy, and you have this like cool team that you can be a part of, which is awesome.
Yeah, they had a similar thing recently. I live in Indianapolis, for the people that don't know, but here at the Motor Speedway, I know like Purdue University did a thing where the students built the self-driving Indy cars, and they were actually lapping. I mean, they did like a albeit a short race, but like I mean, just going down the pit and seeing all those kids like working on that, and like I mean, it doesn't get any cooler than that. That's some of the coolest stuff you can witness.
Yeah. They have a thing at our school here. It's Lego League, but something similar. Cool. Yeah, it's all they build little Lego robots, and they program them to run certain routines based on whatever tasks they are. And there's always it's I think it's like 5th through 8th grade or something like that, and there's always we're a very small school, and there's like 15 kids in it. It's pretty cool. And little shout out, I guess, to my niece, who's never ever going to hear this podcast, but they won the state championship this year, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of people on our team obviously went through some sort of robotics competition or experience when they were younger. They got the bug and they pursued careers in that. And many of them give back to that community and volunteer. One of them in particular stood up a team at a high school that didn't have one. And I actually toured with him a few weeks ago. And it was really inspiring to walk through and see how big a community he's been able to kind of build up from scratch in Pearland. So it's cool. And I'm glad that nerdy kids have an opportunity to be part of a community. When I was younger, I was kind of isolated, didn't have a ton of friends, and now it's not really a problem.
Well, Derrick, I was going to ask you about that. So like, when did you get into robotics? Because I'm just starting with my daughter. When did you get in? Was it like young or was it adult?
It's an interesting question. I'm not the robotics guy. So my experience is in the construction side of things. My dad was an electrician. I grew up in the industry. I hung fire sprinkler pipe when I was in high school and college, and then graduated and worked as a fire protection engineer for a while. I'm registered PE. So I've got kind of the construction side down. My co-founder and frankly the brains behind the operation, Logan Farrell's the robotics guy. And he got the bug when he was in high school at FRC. Did a mechanical engineering degree, did a number of co-ops at NASA, ended up moving to Houston to work at NASA full-time as a robotics R&D engineer. And he's really the robotics expert, and he's built a tremendous team.
Awesome.
You ever hire any like ex-BattleBot team members or anything?
A couple of weird stories there.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's go.
So we've had a couple of people reach out to see if we could sponsor their BattleBot team, and like, I would love to if Alice earmuffs if our venture investors.
No, after the next round, we need some cool rugged robotics logos.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, that would be so cool,
right? Yeah,
and then you deploy it on a job site. What could go wrong?
Yeah, the human resources bot. yeah.
So the other kind of weird story about BattleBots is apparently the floor in the arena is magnetic. I didn't know that, but I was talking to someone about it, and one of the guys here knows people that are on a team, and he's like, "Yeah, it's magnetic," and I was like, "Wow, that's like kind of changes the game when you can suck yourself down to the floor."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the floor in our building is also weirdly magnetic. And I don't know if they just have a ferrous aggregate. Hey,
I don't know if I'm allowed to show this.
No,
but...
you definitely
absolutely.
We can't have public
I wanted
disclosures.
to show the group because wait, I'm not allowed to show this?
No, you just have to narrate.
You have to narrate, yeah.
Well, I wanted to show because Derrick was talking about Logan working on, space stuff. And I was like, this is what the new, well, we can cut this out. But this is what the new robot looks like. And I was like, I feel like I'm in Star Trek or something.
Dude, that's pretty cool. He definitely went over the top with the lights. The lights are just for fun too, right? Like you don't need the lights to get the LiDAR to work right. That's just because it's cool. Like
the lights do have some functionality to them, but it's basically status indicator. And we went way overboard with, how to indicate a status. But
wait, Derrick, am I really not supposed to show that?
No, that's not ready for public disclosure yet. We have IP.
We'll cut it out.
My daughter is building her first robot. So she's building a version of OpenCat, which is it's basically like the dog bots, but it's a cat bot. And so she's primarily building it so that I can build one because I need an excuse to build one. And she said, okay. And except for she's building everything now, and I'm not getting to build anything, which is kind of a bummer.
So when I first stood up Rugged, I worked in my garage for a couple of weeks and tried to build a line following robot. And I'm nerdy and like I can put some hardware together, I'm mechanically inclined. And then it came to programming, and I frankly hit the wall, and I started to cut and paste stuff out of Python, and I just don't have any experience with programming. And that was the moment of realization of like, holy crap, there is zero chance that I can build something that's going to actually do this. And that's when I went out and started to look for a technical co-founder that I could stand up the company with. But yeah, I'm glad you're having an opportunity to get your hands in there and do it. You've got way more software experience, so now you've got the hardware to put it on and run it around.
Derrick, I totally don't, man. I'm you. I'm you. I was fab shop. I was mechanical. I blacksmith. I just learned how to code, and like coding servos for me was like an uphill battle. And that's pretty easy. I did start from scratch though with my daughter, which was kind of cool. So I hope that it works out well for her. So, I'm just going to make an admonition because I've always wanted to ask somebody in your seat this. So when Alice brought me the idea of the layout robots, I boohooed it immediately. I was a hater a little bit. And the reason I was I said, I don't know that job sites are ever going to be this environment that's going to be good for that type of layout. And I've slowly changed my mind, and I've changed my mind for like a lot of reasons, like even to the point where now that I realize that, one of the big benefits of having the ones that mark the floors that you collaborate, that it's not just one person seeing it like through a hologram, which was what I assumed would happen, but actually an entire team seeing it and being able to sort of interact. What was when you started this, what was your biggest, oh, well, if that doesn't work, we're sunk? Like, what was your biggest concern?
I would say level of accuracy.
Okay.
I want to just touch on your first thing about the job site and the environmental conditions. It's definitely a challenge, and some projects are better than others. TI work, something that's fully enclosed and protected from the weather, is just so much easier for us to operate on. When we're on projects where it's snowing or raining, the schedule slips, the schedule's a mess. We don't have the space we need. We've got to sweep puddles out of the way. It's an absolute nightmare. But the TI work is generally a really comfortable, easy, quick, fast process. But early on, I would say my biggest concern was the level of accuracy. Up until that point, no one was building robots that had indoor navigation that could be down in the millimeter range, down 1/16 of an inch. Yeah. That had never, ever been accomplished before. Usually robots were using LiDARs and other sensors, wheel odometry, IMUs, and using SLAM algorithms to get a pretty good map of the space they're migrating through, but nothing was operating at the level of precision I knew that we would need in order to deliver a buildable layout.
I think the fact that you were in Sprinkler makes that easy. Like, we don't have to argue about how accurate you have to be. Sprinkler's been fabricating longer than, as long as sheet metal almost. So like, you kind of know, like it's maybe you get a 1/4 inch because, you can do some other adjustments, but you got an 1/8 inch to work with. So
when I
would like to stay on that. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going to let you finish. You're
I was going to say when I was hanging sprinkler pipe, I used to spend a lot of time on the power vise cutting and threading pipe, and I'd get a big long sheet, and here you go, here are your drops for the day, and I'd just be cutting and threading pipe on a rigid machine. And when I first started, I was trying to measure things to like the 1/16 of an inch, and my foreman was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he actually got me. I don't know where he found this, but he got me a tape measure that had 1/4 inch marks on it. That was as precise as he wanted me to cut pipe at. It's like the nearest 1/4 inch. Like, just stop it. Just go faster. It was interesting.
That's interesting.
I wanted to stick on that because you brought up an interesting word you used when you said the project and scheduling. So with I have a project management background in construction as well for a brief period of time, and I guess to me is are you seeing or are you offering any advice, I guess, when somebody deploys your machine or your equipment on a job site? Are you offering certain I guess like scheduling advice, because that is going to be a big deal. It's going to alter who does what when across the whole job site. So, are you guys kind of learning? Are you offering that as advice to these people?
I would say we're still working through that, to be honest with you. And we're still learning in real time what works best. I will be super transparent with you. We are most productive at the end of the day as the job site starts to get quiet and people are packing up their tools and heading out. And we'll stay until 9 or 10 at night if we have the opportunity to, and the general contractor is supportive of it. That's when it gets quiet. We've got space. We can grab a pallet jack and move around materials to clear the runway that we need. And we're not in anyone's way. And we've built a self-contained platform that is designed to eventually run autonomously overnight. So that's kind of where we're headed with it anyway. We're still monitoring and babysitting, but that's kind of where we want to be. The dream is to set it up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and come in at 7 a.m. and have, half a floor or the entire floor completely laid out, all the trades. Now you can immediately run in with all your materials and start putting stuff up in the ceiling.
Will it be packaged with like a mover bot that moves things around with it? Yeah.
A whole little robot army.
My hope is that if we can compress a week's worth of layout with like 4 or 5 people doing the different trades down into overnight, that's worth it to the general contractor or to those trade contractors to have a laborer out there, move the stuff around. Let's clear off a meaningful section of floor and press go and let it go. But we fight that fight. Sometimes
Oh, sure.
people see the value and are supportive and willing to do that. And other times, you know, the fireproofer's got his section and he's going to work in his section, and there's no way around that.
Yeah.
So,
they have to let the technology work as well, right? I mean,
Right.
you can't just leave the blockers in place. No, that's
100%. And those are the customers that we're looking for right now, or the customers that understand that they have to set us up for success and support that success. And if they want to put barriers in place, absolutely, we will fail. Like you can make it so it doesn't work out super well. So we need to be selective.
I've seen more and more supporters, though. I'm just saying it. And the reality is, Mike Zelanovich talked about it as like intermittent fasting. We have a situation in where there's a small construction window in most of our job sites, given a 24-hour period. There's an 8 to 10 hour construction window, and then there's this window that's not getting used properly. And Mike went into sort of great detail on it. And even back when I was in project management and contracting, there was always the idea of sending someone in early to do markup, early to deliver material, all of these things. And that's really, I feel like that time, those hours in the evening and in the early morning need to belong to the robots. And, having a robot that picks things up and moves it out of the way is not a huge lift, no pun intended. But
no, I was kind of being serious. I mean,
if you want to come on board and start experimenting in that.
yeah. So as soon as I'm done with the cat, we'll just put a bulldozer on the front of it, and it can kind of walk around. It'd be cooler because it's a cat. I also would say I lay out a lot with Trimble, and I can remember being on wet floors, standing on a piece of foam and trying to make some sort of a mark underneath the water with my rod. It's like I had a little punch, a metal punch, and I had it spring loaded and was slamming it into the concrete. So the idea that it's not, all of the digital layout has a level of it's tough in the rain, and laying out with the tape measure in the rain sucks. It just sucks really bad, and no one will do it. So I do think there's that. What I was surprised is how many contractors I talked to were like, no, clean it up. And I had a couple GCs who were like, it's an excuse for us to hold everybody's feet to the flames about keeping a clean job site and a safe job site. So it actually has a cool little lead in, but definitely I thought it was going to be AR. And the more they talked to me about being able to collaborate, the more I was like, if it's AR, I need 15 people that understand the technology. If it's what you're doing, I need one operator for multiple job sites.
I totally agree. And honestly, to me, a bet on AR is a bet that humans are going to always be doing that manually intense, dirty, physically demanding work. And in 100 years, think we're going to have incrementally more and more robotics doing some of that heavy, dangerous, dirty work. So I think this is a starting point in that direction. It's baby steps. It's not going to happen overnight. But I do believe in a future way down the road where robots are doing incrementally more and more work. And this is kind of heading in that direction. AR is and I also Heinz pointed that pipe, right? I can't imagine doing installation work. It's great for visualization, for walking around, maybe for some real-time coordination on the job site, but doing installation work with a set of goggles on and
they'll have to make the interface different. If it's going to be successful, it's got to be a different interface.
I've actually liked the augmented iPad stuff better. I'm sure there's people here that are gonna shoot me for this, but I've preferred the augmented iPad apps.
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that, because I do as well. I thought that we would, but we do have a couple of HoloLenses, and once you put those glasses on somebody, they don't want to go back. But I agree that there's a pretty heavy lift. There's a heavy lift to get everything processed in there and to get it on, and then we're still, we get it out a few times a year or probably half a dozen times a year on active job sites, but there still needs to be that tech support person on site, because even something as simple as I take that hard hat off and I flip it over to hand to the next person, it screws the whole thing up. So you can't expect a foreman or even a project manager or anybody else there to sit there and kind of rejigger it. But I was going to ask Alice, I want to get back on the DOTY here. with given your background in what you're doing now, I'd like to understand a little bit more, like your focus on robotics, what you're looking for, what do you see changing in the industry? Obviously, the layout robot is probably that your first big stride into the robotics land, but nerd out for us. Like tell us what you're looking at. Tell us what you think we need and why.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, back on the DOTY thing, I come from industry, and I like remembered that the reason that I got this job at brick and mortar is actually construction robotics. I was kind of thinking back to like, why did I even reach out? Like, how did I reach out to Curtis again? So Curtis Rogers is partner here at brick and mortar. And I remember reaching out to him, and that started the conversations with brick and mortar. And the reason I reached out was I was looking at this construction robotics startup. I'm not going to name any names, but I was researching construction tech startups, saw this company, reached out to Curtis, and I was like, hey, I see you're connected to this company. I'm interested in talking to them, learning more, potentially, joining a construction robotics startup. And then at the time, brick and mortar had just invested in their competitor. And Curtis was like, hey, you should come talk to us instead. Maybe consider, something else. So yeah, fun fact, construction robotics is what got me to brick and mortar. When I first joined, a lot of what we looked at was still on the hardware side. I think when I joined, they had already invested in Canvas. And I would say Canvas is probably the OG construction robotics startup. They've already raised, a ton of funding. They've been, I think they've been working on that for more than 4 or 5 years now. And they're definitely the furthest along in terms of testing out, different business models and different ways of interacting with unions and trying to figure out, how do you augment the worker rather than, be this fearful Terminator-like thing that comes to construction sites, right? So I think we owe a lot to the Canvas team and kind of testing it out, paving the way. And we're very thankful that they are part of the brick and mortar portfolio, and they get to work with a lot of our other construction robotics investments, like Derrick and the Rugged Robotics team. I know that, they talk a lot, and there's a lot of lessons learned that get shared, but from a scope to scope perspective, there are so many nuances to how to go to market and how to do all this stuff. So I think for us, like definitely when we first started digging more into the construction robotics space, it's very much looking at what is the big problem that they're solving, right? And how annoying is this problem to contractors? That's definitely one big thing. But secondly, also looking at it from a technology perspective, like, is this overkill, right? Like, are they actually, designing something that is differentiated, and also, are they going like way too above and beyond for the task at hand and stuff like that, right? So luckily we have some friends in robotics, and they validated that, even in the early days, like the Rugged team was very efficient and effective with their selection of sensors and technology in the overall platform. And it was a platform that could scale, but it wasn't something that was like over-engineered for what it's supposed to do. Because like that's kind of what we're seeing now with some of these other construction robotics startups, is like you're using 6-axis arms to do a simple task or something like that, right? It's like, people are thinking that, oh, if I need to scale and build a platform, I'm actually going to build this super crazy platform. But at the end of the day, it's like, construction tasks could be actually very simple. And if you don't understand the task and the workflow, you may be spending way too much time, money, technology, brain power to just try to over-engineer something that's not necessary. So it's been very interesting to see, like, over the last year or two, we've seen a couple more construction robotic startups pop up. And we know the construction side really well, but I think we know enough folks on the robotic side to help with some of this validation on, overkill.
I just want to reiterate, find a need, fill a need, solve the problem, find the problem and solve the problem. Don't take a robotic platform and search for a way to sell it to the construction industry, which we see a lot of.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's a huge problem in software.
It's
just a massive problem.
Yeah, in software, it's a big problem. And you have to, back to us just being nerds, like you have to fight the urge to build RoboCop, right? We don't need RoboCop when, maybe all we really need is a can opener. It's still, it's still a mechanical device that does a job, but, you don't need that Swiss Army knife.
I totally agree. And the construction industry, it's been slow to adopt technology. And I think a lot of robotics companies see it as an opportunity to sell their equipment into it. Like, oh, they need more technology. They need robotics. How do we adapt our system to that environment so we can sell it into that huge piece of the economy? And we see a fair amount of that. And I just don't understand it. I think if you approach a problem and methodically break it down, figure out what those critical pieces are, and then build a solution that solves that problem, that's how I think you build a sustainable business.
Yeah.
No,
and I think it's great, you know, what you guys are able to do, like alongside of Alice and Brick and Mortar. I think those relationships help a startup stay within what they originally set out to accomplish. I mean, you guys have a problem set, you're focused on it, and you have the financial backing that is able to let you proceed with that, because what we see on the other end is when a software or hardware provider is funded from their customers, they tend to listen to a customer, and this customer decides that I need you to solve all my problems.
Yeah. They have a certain,
it's and then you turn into this big giant mess that is now doing things that it never even set out to do.
I'll be honest with you. We get requests every once in a while for interesting features. It's like, that's intriguing. Like, maybe in 2 years' time, we'll think about that. Like, it's like, that's a really clever idea, and it's adjacent to what we're doing. And we have, say we have the hardware, the sensors or whatever, or we have some of the expertise to adapt to tackle that challenge. But it takes a certain level of discipline, and you're 100% right. Having the financial backing of investors like Brick and Mortar is critical. There's no chance that we could do this. We couldn't hire the engineering team to tackle this challenge and to be able to develop this technology without that financial backing. So it's appreciated. Thank you, Alice. She's been a long-time supporter of Rugged, even before they invested.
Yes.
Alice has been a champion. Yeah.
Yes.
She's been awesome.
She was on the phone with me before they invested, asking questions too. You have to admit, though, for people looking in from the outside, sometimes they don't get that in construction. One of the things we have is we have such a variety of products that we're producing for any building. It really is sort of not an oddball, because it's understandable, but like, I think a lot of people look at it, they're coming out of manufacturing. There's only maybe 400 base products that they're producing, and then they come to a job site and it's like, well, you don't hardly repeat at all. Like, you don't even seem to want to repeat the same product once. So when you're hitting, like your product does, when you're hitting a piece of the workflow, like layout, that's critical to a huge variation of products, now you have a robot that works. Where a lot of those robots are trying to build products for us, and we build too many different products for that to be an easy win. It will be a win someday. I agree with that, but not an easy one. Hey, man, Derrick, did you ever see Runaway with Tom Selleck? It's a movie from the 80s. I'm going to keep bringing it up.
I think we're about the same age. And I definitely remember the movie cover. I actually worked in a video store rental when I was younger.
Right on, man. So did I.
but I don't remember movie, but I'm guessing the premise was robots taking over. Is that where we're headed?
No, the premise was, one of the scenes was they went to a job site that was all robots. And the number of robots that they got right throughout the course of this movie that was from the 80s is absurd. It's like absurd. Like, I watched their one little drone robot. I'm like, oh, holy cow, Ring just put that out. Like, Ring just put that out this year. And so I always ask people, because when I was a kid and watching that show, and moving into construction, that's what I thought construction would be. So I'm waiting for a robot or overlords to take over.
Eagerly.
Like, maybe a newer one is Westworld season 4, where they're showing robots doing like the facade maintenance on the top of a high rise, maybe.
See, this is why she's more relevant.
Nerd alert.
Yes, nerd
alert. John's stuck in the 90s.
I am so stuck in the 80s. It's not even the
80s. You haven't
even
made it to the 90s yet.
Yeah. Tom Selleck still had real hair, in this movie.
But that stash was still a thing.
Oh yeah,
the stash.
That stash has had a career of its own.
Yeah,
it has. I wanted to jump in
Yeah.
quick and ask, one of those questions about go to market and tell them the story of value, because all of us hosts either work for or have worked for union contractors. So what's the sell to them? Because and Derrick, correct me if I'm wrong, is but from what I know of your business model so far, it's like it's very GC focused. We're going to lay out the points for all trades all at once. How do you sell that to the trades that are claiming that work?
Yeah, so we do work for subs on occasion. We do try to work for the general contractor. Part of the value proposition is bringing that fully coordinated design, bringing all of the trades in there. A rising tide raises all ships, right? We're trying to bring everyone to a level of performance and sophistication that we can deliver. My dad was in Local 96 in Worcester. He's a union electrician, and I get questions about unions quite a bit. I didn't start this company to take anyone's job. That's definitely not the goal here. We're trying to use robots for what robots are good at and free up people to do what people are good at. And if you look at the foreman or the layout guys, they're generally the most talented, most capable people on the crew. And they're spending a lot of time doing something that's fairly monotonous. We did a pilot project that had 7 miles of wall track in it. That's 14 miles of chalk line. And you've got the smartest guy on your crew doing 14 miles of chalk line, crawling around on his hands and knees. That's archaic. It just doesn't make sense. Let us use robots for what robots are good at so that they can manage the team, deal with material deliveries, deal with the general contractor, the schedule, whatever's going sideways. Let them solve problems that people can solve. So that's kind of our approach. And that's the conversation that we try to have with both general contractors and trade partners. This is a topic that comes up all the time, and we're still navigating it, to be honest. I don't know that we found the perfect answer for how to deal with this.
Right.
Look,
Alex,
if I'm I was going to say real quick, if I'm a trade contractor, I'm telling the GC that I didn't that my team doesn't perform layout, right? So I don't have to give that deduct back.
Yeah, we just put it in. We don't know where it goes. Yeah, so it is something. I would say most of the trade contractors, they recognize the risks associated with layout, and that's something that we're generally willing to take on because we can do this better than anyone else. When I was hanging sprinkler pipe as an apprentice, one of my jobs was fire stopping around the penetrations where the pipe passed through a rated wall, and every apprentice on the job site was doing that. They did it really poorly. And now there are fire stopping kind of consolidated service providers. There's a specialty sub that does all the fire stopping work and does it really, really well. So that's the model that we're trying to follow, is to take over that task that generally people struggle with or don't do especially well or do at different levels of proficiency. We're trying to standardize it, deliver it at a really high quality, really fast and efficient way, and asking the trade contractors to contribute towards that. Usually the GCs are also willing to put in some money towards it. And so far, again, we have to be selective with who we're working with, and they've got to be approaching this from the right mindset. But so far we've been really successful. And an interesting, I guess maybe side point is that if you look at geographically, US is huge, right? And every region has their own kind of norms, their own construction practices, their own preferred materials, and some regions are heavily unionized. Some regions are not unionized. I'm down here in Texas. It's mostly a right to work, open shop state. So you've got geographies like this. What's interesting is the open shop areas are slower to adopt technology. We did a project in South Florida, and I mentioned total station, and they were like, "What's that?" I don't know what a total station is. But you go to Boston, Chicago, West Coast, you go to any of the more heavily unionized markets, and all of the MEP trades are using total stations to do layouts. Everyone's doing fully coordinated designs and trying to carry as much of that detail into the field as they possibly can. So it's interesting that it's a big country. There's lots of different norms in different regions, and we're trying to understand and navigate all of those, I would say.
Alice, I was wondering if you had any thoughts or insights from your end, beyond the layout robots and what the stuff that you're seeing kind of talking towards those questions.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing that we learned from Canvas and talking to some of these other construction robotics startups is the word robot just has a somewhat of a negative connotation to workers. So instead of calling it a robot, you call it a machine or a piece of equipment, because at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? It's not full autonomous. And I think we are a bit away of full autonomous anything on a construction site. Like, it's always going to be augmenting the worker, or there's going to be some worker that needs to be around to either control, watch, manage, whatever it is, whether it's safety reasons or the tech. Actually, frankly, the technology is just not there yet. So we're kind of in this transition point where it's not full autonomous. So I don't know if you actually want to call it a robot. Like, is it really like, what is the true definition of a robot? And,
like a Tiger Stop could be a robot, right? I mean,
it is like, exactly. Like we did, the construction robotics talk, like in theory, any software that's augmenting a human workflow is also considered a robot, right? In its purest definition. So I think, like, with one thing, kind of talking about it as a machine or equipment tends to make it a lot easier for folks in the field to feel a lot more comfortable with. But I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at, some of these business models, or even just how they're coming onto site, like, they're not coming by themselves. Like, it's not, a full blown, thing that's going to come and take away jobs or whatever, right? It is augmenting the workers.
It's interesting is I've had on both union and non-union projects, I would say about 30% of the time, one of the layout guys will come over and ask if we're hiring. And it's usually the drywall guy who's snapping chalk lines on his hands and knees. I had one guy that was 26 years old. He's already had shoulder surgery. He's got a blown out knee and a messed up back. And he was telling me all these injuries. He's like, I'm 26. Like, I can't do this for the rest of my career. Are you guys hiring? I'd love to come work for you. I think that's the goal. And Alice is 100% right. These things are going to need babysitters and operators for a long time. So I think there's an opportunity to offload the dull, dirty, dangerous stuff to a machine. Again, machine. Excellent point, Alice. And babysit that. And we're still just helping them do it more efficiently, helping them.
Dude, you're a printer. Okay. If I would not want to handwrite all the stuff that I have to get out during a day. You're a printer, and you're you're the right introduction to robots on a job site, because I've been talking to a lot of the people creating robots, and they're like, oh, I'm going to put the 360 camera on it and it's going to go take pictures. I'm like, you're going to put a surveillance robot on a job site and you expect us to like robots? Why don't you would you like to give it a whip so that it can snap so we paying attention? like way to not pay attention to what people notice. Like, a surveillance robot is going to be hated. A robot that keeps you off your hands and knees, that's going to be loved. You have a robot that's likely to increase people's, desire to have robots on the job site. And, I deal with mostly union contractors. And what I've noticed about the guys in the field is they're highly trained for the work they're doing. They are doing tedious work all too often. They're really highly trained for it. And a lot of times when I talk to them about what they're afraid of, it's that they're not going to get a break between it. Like, my break was going to draw stuff on the floor. They need to find a new break time because there is a level at which these are really, really good problem solvers, really good builders, really good craftsmen. And they'll take advantage of the tool. I think, with stuff like yours that's helpful and isn't a surveillance robot. Like, I get not liking surveillance robots. I think that's something that most of them are going to embrace. I think that's why the Trimble got embraced was this. I'm still doing it, but it's not taking me as long. And it was tedious to begin with. But I mean, legit, yours is a printer. And I can't imagine putting out the paperwork I put out and having to do it by hand. It's just tedious. I did have one question for Alice. Since you are the Dork of the Year this year, I met you, is it 4 years ago? Approximately?
AU before the pandemic. So coming up on, this year.
Yeah, almost 4 years,
So
has it really been that long?
Yeah. Yeah, it has. When I talked to you back then, you had a view of robotics and construction coming out of sort of general contracting. And you have had a focus on the trades. You've been really involved with the trades moving forward. What is those 4 years sort of giving you as insight in terms of what you thought coming into what you realized? Like tell us maybe one of your bigger insights about what you've seen over that period of sort of getting involved with the trades and then what you see on the outside? Because I think the GCs, often are surprised by the trades when they get to know them.
Yeah, so I think I kind of knew this even at DPR because definitely at times in my job I felt like I was a broker, right? I was just pushing paper around, sharing information, like that is for the most part what the job of a GC is, CYA, right? Like, oh, I need to send out all these RFIs because, God forbid someone gets missed on the distribution and then we have this, argument over a change order, right? I think my biggest appreciation is the challenges of information flow for a subcontractor. And I didn't really appreciate this even when I was at DPR because I was working on big jobs. And a lot of those subcontractors, they were only working on that one job. But since kind of working on smaller jobs and coming out of it, it's like there are a lot of these trades that have to work on, it's like one person working on 5 different jobs all at the time. So imagine all the crap that you have to deal with from 5 different GCs coming to you, and then you probably have 10, 5 times 5 distributors and like 5 times 10 suppliers, and there's just exponentially more people that you have to deal with to do your day-to-day job. So I can only imagine, a lot of the people that work for a subcontractor, all the communications they have to deal with, all the data management, all of that.
Well, and the reason for Nathan's organization, all the systems that we have to deal with.
There's no integration. There are no integrations. Not that there are no, but lack of integrations. And it's just it just seems like it's so much messier as you go down. In theory, you would think it's so much messier as you go down the supply chain, but the distributors and suppliers, they actually kind of have it easy because the subcontractor is coordinating. So I feel like the subcontractor is in the middle of the trying to manage all the information flow going back and forth, and they manage the most risk. So they don't just manage labor. At the GC, some of them have, self-perform, or some of them do order materials to some extent. But for the most part, it's mostly managing human labor, right? But on the subcontractor side, you're managing labor, you're managing materials, you're managing a factory, you're managing supply chain, you're managing so much more stuff. So it makes sense why the margins are higher and, there's so much more risk involved. But I don't think I truly appreciated that until coming to brick and mortar and trying to figure out, talking to the trades and understanding what their pain points are. And also when I think about opportunity to build technology, I feel like the trades have been so I don't know if it's neglected because they are not seen as a big part of the supply chain just based on pure revenue numbers. But when it comes to managing risk, margins, how much they care about profit, how much you care about productivity, I think the subcontractors are where it's at. And also with the subcontractors, I think part of it could also be that it's so complicated that maybe no one truly understands how to operate that business, which is why we may not have seen that many startups kind of going after the trade space. I don't know, that one is more of an assumption, but I definitely have a way greater appreciation for the people working at the subcontractor level.
Right on.
Subcontractors are where it's at. That's the show title.
So I considered going to work for a subcontractor too, because I was going, and I think at the GC, everyone tries to climb quote unquote up the pole of going. Yeah. But it's because you want to get paid to do less work, but it's not as fun. It's less risk. It's less work because you're kind of just talking to people. No, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I have a lot of peers that have gone from DPR to an owner's rep or on the owner's side, and the work changes pretty drastically, and a lot of people like it because you have more flexibility with work-life balance and all that. But I always thought going to the trades to really understand how do you manage labor, materials, resources, and just looking at the factory manufacturing, all of that just seems way more cool. I mean, it's complex, but it seems more cool and gratifying to understand how that process works rather than I'm just going to go and throw around change orders all day.
That's right. The trades are where the real work gets done. What I think you're touching on is we people, myself included, everyone consumes status. So there's this natural desire to try to climb that food chain. I don't know what you want to call it, that hierarchy. And I would say that's a challenge for trade contractors maintaining their talent base. And it's something that I see talking to drywall trades, drywall contractors, that if they have a VDC team, they're getting poached left and right by general contractors. And by the time someone gets trained up and is really proficient and good at what they're doing, they're going up to a big, sexy logo at the GC level. And I would say it's not limited to just VDC folks. It's, overall the talent in general is being drawn up, and it's really hard for those trade partners to get qualified, capable workers and hold on to them and keep them happy and give them rewarding work.
I think it's a little bit too about just kind of the metrics that are applied to a construction company, just basing it off of pure revenue. The big companies that have revenues that start with a B are much sexier than the ones that start with an M. And I mean, even, you're talking about like Texas and stuff before, like, we as specialty contractors are ranked against other contractors, but the contractors in Texas, their revenue numbers are close to ours, but their volume is much higher, right? Because they're Texas dollars.
Yeah.
So, just trying to.
Chicago labor is a little higher than,
just a touch.
Yeah.
So, it is a little bit of how you're ranking each other.
One thing that's interesting to me is the trades in this area are often hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's bigger than many general contractors in other parts of the country. We've got a great partner down here that does 150 million, maybe 200 million a year in drywall, and that's giants for a drywall trade. But yeah, it's a different scale for sure.
For sure.
So, by the way, I definitely think you should have called it Ruthless Robotics, because I would have remembered Ruthless Robotics. That would have been awesome. So just like
that sounds like a BattleBot.
That does.
It does sound like a BattleBot thing. For sure.
So my goal, and I'm sure I've told this to Alice, but I come from the trades. I'm more comfortable in work boots and a hard hat on the job site than I am in the boardroom. Like, that's the community that I really identify with and want to be a part of. And when I was going through the exercise of naming the company, I spent a couple of days kind of brainstorming and trying to figure out what to name it, and came up with Rugged Robotics. And we're still nascent in building our brand identity, but I have a koozie. I need to send you guys some koozies to put your IPAs in. But we keep a 5-gallon bucket of camouflage koozies on almost every job site we're on. And if someone comes over and asks what we're working on and what we're doing, they get a koozie, we'll chat them up, try to, pick their brain for ideas and feature requests and feedback. But yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't name it.
Ruthless.
The name is not memorable enough for you, John.
Look, John and I have John and I have Steel Toe Consulting, so it's the same person. Yeah, it's not. There's no.
Derrick, mine was.
You're right in line with that.
My kid made a joke about something that I was taught early on in contracting, and that's when you're shaking someone's hands, they're always staring at your boots. And if your boots are clean, they know you're a dick. Pardon my language. But that's the thing, is they know that you're not there to help them. It's like I had to convince one of the companies I worked at to get rid of all the white hard hats. And they said, why? And I said, because when they see a white hard hat, it's an engineer and everybody hides. And so like don't do those things. But I think that I think that the robot that you've decided to settle on is one that's perfect for the one that I feel like I can support, because it's not taking away building. Because I think a lot of the people in the trades, what they got into the trades to do is to build stuff rather than to push paper. And literally, layouts pushing paper. They just don't realize it's pushing paper, but it's pushing paper. It's marking up a floor so that you can build.
Yeah, you're copying paper to the concrete.
Yeah, it's pushing paper. So I think you're helping them to build better, and I really applaud you for that. I had one last question, because we are running out of time for you, Derrick, and that is, you've managed to remain very focused on this product, and you've kind of doubled down on that throughout the entire talk. Is I'm focused on this product. I focused on the features that we have for this product. So, so if tomorrow Travis, who has tons of money over there at Helm Mechanical, bought the entire company off you, and then the next day Alice came, said, "Hey, listen, you did a great job building that robot. We need you to build a different robot." You know, what's in your head, man? What's your, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to make you move,
ideas.
But like, but what do you want to build next, man?
I've got all kinds of ideas, and honestly, I don't want to share the best ones.
No. Share one.
Give us like number 3.
Deflect. Just do like a number 4.
Take top 5.
If you think about what we're doing, we're right at the intersection of the digital and physical world, right? We're taking that digital model and we're bringing that information into the real world. If you look broadly at construction, it is executing a task in a specific location. So we're trying to own that, like that indoor navigation, hyper precise mobility platform. And right now we're commercializing that with printing and just putting that information on the floor. But there's no reason we can't add some sophistication, dexterity to that platform and start doing some level of installation work. And it's going to be incremental. There's, not going to be a magic robot. It's certainly not going to be a humanoid robot that's going around doing construction work. But we can start doing simple tasks on the job site. And I don't think that's too far out. It's a few years away, but that's kind of where I think we're headed. I don't know that I can give you, because the only ones in my idea are things that I actually do really want to pursue. So
see, you're always supposed to pick the idea you know won't work, and then you give that out. That's it. But that was a good answer, Derrick. Trent, Travis, do you have anything else to ask them before we kind of close out?
I don't have anything to ask. This was an awesome conversation. I love nerding out with folks like you. I hope we could continue to do it more. I guess I
would absolutely love to. I'm big fans of what you guys do, and would love to be a part of the community. So
you're a fan. You're a fan, so you're the one.
We found him.
Alice tipped me off, and I've been listening. So yeah.
No, just very appreciative, Alice, Derrick, both of you. I know, Alice, you've been on here before. It's always fun talking to you here and at the conferences. I think it's cool what Brick and Mortar is doing. I think is fantastic. I think it's empowering people like Derrick. I mean, there's Derrick is one of the companies out there. There are others that are doing some really cool things in construction, and we wouldn't be doing our due diligence to our listener base if we didn't bring these people on to talk about the cool things that are happening. And I like that. It's not robotics; they're machines, right? They're augmenting the workforce. I think let's remember that. A lot of key takeaways out of here, and
Trent, totally agree with you. We couldn't do what we do at Rugged, and frankly, the industry couldn't evolve without financial supporters like Alice. And I've spoken with probably a dozen people that have told me, "Hey, I thought of the layout room. I wanted to do that." It's like the idea has been around for a while.
Right.
It's just it takes, I don't know, maybe a little bit of craziness to push your chips in the middle of the table and go after it. But then it takes someone like Alex behind you to enable it. Because you can only get so far on your own before you need to start building a team and really hiring some expertise. So I'm grateful that the venture community is starting to pay more attention to the construction industry. I am excited about where we're headed as an industry. I'm thrilled that I can be a part of it. I think that I've finally found what I'm meant to do professionally. I'm having so much fun. Awesome. I'm learning a ton. It's really rewarding. It's got its ups and downs. I'm not going to lie, but it's been great.
Right.
What does
and now that Alice is backing us, I can actually draw a salary. The first 2 years pretty well.
Nice. You better tighten that up there, Alice. You better tighten it up.
Yeah.
I got to step up to the name brand ramen noodle now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not much, but it's something. I can justify.
I
want to.
me way too much credit, and also brick and mortar, the venture community. I mean, the wonderful thing that we've seen is the industry has really shown interest. I've definitely seen that change over the last 4 years that I've been here now. There's a lot more interest from the industry side. And I like that is actually what fuels me, is like people from industry asking for solutions, getting interested in the tech, like, you know, looking for solutions, asking, you know, like going out, talking to startups. I think we're in a very unique space. Like I've talked to a lot of other VCs in healthcare, biotech, all these adjacent spaces, and they don't see nearly the same type of reception from the industry as I see. Like I always feel like I'm super spoiled because I talk to folks and, you know, people are so open to sharing, people want to collaborate, people want to share their opinions, but the other industries are not like this. Like it's so hard to get, you know, customer feedback or to get the industry excited. So I feel like it's a really good timing for like all of us, all the dorks, all the nerds, everyone who loves tech.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, you know, this just continues to grow, and that, you know, we hopefully will see more robotics on construction sites, and, you know, doing all the things that are hard, you know, back breaking and all that. My dad's a carpenter and he's had back problems probably for the last 30 years. And I would like to not see people's, you know, family members, parents with hurt backs, broken fingers, you know, fingers that you can't close all the way. Like my dad has a broken body, and it, you know, is very painful to see. So I'm like, you know, hoping that this future of construction is going to be, you know, a lot more augmented workforce. We can leverage hardware robotics and, you know, do it faster. There's a, you know, growing need for more and more homes and buildings and shelters and support spaces, and, you know, labor. We have a labor issue. So we need more robotics, or I guess I should say machines, but
machines.
We need more machines. So any entrepreneur from industry, from outside of industry that wants to build something, we will gladly support and at least try to find a way to intro to customers or whatever, validate ideas. But we want to be a supporter for the space.
And I just want to say, go for it. You don't know if you don't try. You don't know if you don't ask. You don't know if you don't put everything you've got into it. So go for it. And who knows? And maybe it doesn't work out, but you're going to learn a ton along the way. And if it does, it's a hell of a ride. So, you know, anyone that's thinking about it.
Yeah, it's great advice.
We have an industry that rewards risk takers by having them fall up. I'm just saying, risk takers in constructions fall up. And I want to give a shout out to Nathan Wood and the Construction Progress Coalition for bringing together that community, and for like consistently picking people that have huge impacts in construction for the Dork of the Year. We've had each of them on the show. We all know each of them personally, and they are people that have huge impact. And it was really interesting. Alice, you're the first time that it's been somebody that's associated even with ventures. It's always been somebody kind of different. So yeah. Nathan, thank you so much for everything you do.
It's been what? So Walker was the first one, right? Yep. Walker Locker. Yep. We should probably go back. After that, it was James Simpson, right? Or was it was Lil before?
No, James isn't one, but James was just on with Walker because James is awesome.
Okay, then so I knew Lil was one. I didn't know if James was between the two, but so Walker, Lil, and then is this the third one or
no? This is fourth. Brianna.
That's right. Want to make sure we get that out there. So,
and she was on too. I remember drawing you all, so it's easy for me. But I think we should probably wrap it up. We went pretty good over, but not like I don't feel like Jeff's gonna slap me down too much. But so this has been the Construction Dorks, and please join us for the next episode.